Yeah, Laura was
For
one.
him,
The Man I Love, Laura, and Jealousy.
those
There
were
were
his
three.
songs. Mine was Cuore
Cuore
Napoletano,
Napolitano. Yeah,
which I still listen on
yeah.
every day.
Si cambia tutto il mondo, ma Napoli si sa come una stella in cielo
I don't like
eterna
it. And I asked my mother once, and she said the gypsy bought me at the door, and the name was there already. So it's just a joke. I really don't know, because all my brothers and sisters had, good names like Francesca, Umberto, Vincenzo, Graziella, Maria, Cristina, mine, Yolanda.
My father was in service in 1918, 77. He had a major that he thought a lot of, and he tried to name me after him, but his name was Jacob Call, and he couldn't remember it, so I'm glad he couldn't. So I ended up John Carroll instead of Jacob Call. But I'm kind of glad he didn't remember because I like John Carroll. And Carroll, anyway, was a family name in the Scott family of my mother's side of the family. That's my middle initial, my middle name, in other words.
My mother and daddy slept in one room. When my brother Umberto was born, he slept with them. We had a double bed, which is bigger than the bed over here in Europe, Two of my sister on top, and me and my other sister would be on the bottom. So we get the cold feet in the wintertime when they used to come to bed. In fact, they used to send me up 10 minutes before because I got warm real quick. And they would come and I would yell. I mean, it was no fun, but we got along. And my brother slept on a small bed.
I was born in Hopewell, Virginia. Should have been born here, but my mother, I think, and father lived here. But my grandparents lived in Hopewell, and they were visiting, and I think I was a little earlier than I was supposed to be. So I think I spent my first 2 weeks in a dresser drawer instead of a bed because they, until they could travel back here. And we lived in the city of Lynchburg on Miller Street over by Guggenhammer Hospital, if you know where that's, used to be called Guggenhammer Hospital on Great Street, up until about 6. And at that time we moved out on what's now Florida Avenue. At the time we moved out there, it was called Jacksontown Road. My grandfather had built the house, and it's still called the Scott Home Place.
That was my sister, Francesca, but we call her Franca. And my brother, Vincenzo, was the second. Then my sister, Maria. And then I had a brother between her and me. His name was Nicoletto. Then it was me. Then I had another brother, which died when he was a year old, so I never got to know him. And his name was Leonsko, which is kind of hard to pronounce even for me. And then my brother my sister Pupetta Cristina, my brother Umberto. Then I had a sister Assunta, which died also when she was young. And the last one is Graziella. She's still living in Milano. She's about 14 years younger than I am.
I had 4 sisters, 2 older, 2 younger, and then I was in the middle. I was right in the middle, and we all lived together in a 2-bedroom house. And it was kind of crowded, because the girls all slept in one room, and the other we had a back bedroom, had 2 big beds in it. My mother and father slept in one, and I slept in the other one, So we were right crowded in there, but we didn't have water, we didn't have toilets, we didn't have, in fact, we didn't have electricity until I went. In fact, I think I got electricity after I left and went to service in 1946. But we had the outhouse down, a few yards behind the house.
My father met my mother. He was in Carabinieri, which is an order in Italy, and over there you can't get married. When you meet a person, I mean a girl, you can't get married right away. You either get out of the army or you stay in, and then get married. So he was from Ceraso, Salerno, which is the side of Italy. My mother was actually Yugoslavian that time. And she didn't speak, the Italian very good because all they did is spoke Yugoslavian. So he met her and he went out of the army, married her, and then he got a job working the streetcar like they have in San Francisco. It's one similar to that. And my mother was a homemaker, and poor thing, she had a hard life because, the money wasn't that much, but she took care of us. She cooked and did everything.
Father was a disabled veteran of World War I. He got gas with mustard gas in France. And at that time, there was no treatment. Nobody even knew anything about it because it's the first time, used. So they kind of kept him on morphine for about 2 or 3 years, and he was in and out of VA hospitals for the rest of his life, really. He would go in, and they would get him off, and then he'd have to go back again later on, So he and I didn't get to do the things, that most young boys and fathers do. But he's a wonderful person, but it just, everything was taken up with Daddy needs his medicine. That was what we, as young people, considered. Any money that came in, it was for Daddy's medicine. But he was a nice guy, and I had a good, I played with everybody, and we did real well.
I had good parents. My father used to love to play cards, and sometime my mother used to send me to get him home so supper was ready. And he said, just a minute. He probably was winning, so he didn't want to leave because we was good at cards. In the wintertime, I would wait outside looking to see if he's going to get up. And he never did, and I never went back home because my mother used to send me back, so I waited for him, sometimes half an hour. So when I saw him get up, I finally went in the front, and we went home together. I tell you, those Napolitani, they are something else.
I went to school at Mountain View School. It's not there anymore. There's a rec center for aged people there now. But I went to grade school there, and that was it for me. I quit school at 15 and went to work. I had to.
I was a pretty good student, but I didn't really like to study, but I did anyway. And as far as friends, I was just talking to my sister. When you go to school over there, you take your snack with you. They feed you lunch. Although I don't remember, but that's what she said. She's 9 years older than I am, so I guess she does. But I had a friend, a Jewish friend. She was in my class, and whenever we had religious, classes, she would go out of the room. But she bought me my snack with her snack every morning. She was so nice. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't keep up with after we got married, but she had a good heart. She really, she knew that I didn't have a lot, so she used to her mother used to fix one for her and one for me.
Christmas was a pocket knife or something like that. You know, we never had big Christmases because nobody ever had the money to have them. And I think he was when growing up. I think he got about $100 a month, 5 children, and the 2 adults, and the government paid him about $100 a month pension. You know, and that don't go far.
When I was young, I don't remember. I mean, we didn't have, where we lived, you know, it was a street. People were going by. The house was right on an alley, let's put it that way. So you couldn't, we played out there, jump rope and something like that, but I don't remember back then that, you know, I remember when I was going to school, and then summer we used to play outside and just talk. We did a lot of talking. In fact, a friend of mine that lives in Texas, and we always said that we were going to marry an American, and they all laugh because they say, oh yeah, they're going to come here and get you, you know, not knowing that they will come, but they always tease us. But we did, both of us married an American, so it came through.
Just because I wanted to be a soldier. That was because there's no other reason. I mean, you know, and I just wanted to be. I wanted to be a soldier, and that was my life's, you know, dream right at that time when I was 15 years old. And then the war had started, and of course, Lynchburg used to be every Friday night. Almost all of the soldiers that were stationed down at Camp Pickett, you know, used to come here for the weekend. And I was always around soldiers. You know, they was always here from 1940. I can't really ever think of wanting to be anything else.
We used to watch the airplane going up when my mother would hear that, and she knew they were full of bombs because they made a lot of noise, and we would watch and just look. Then one day, all of a sudden, my mother started yelling, they dropping bomb, and we laughed because we thought, you know, she was kidding, but she wasn't. We just got in the house, and the bomb hit the corner. I was putting my daddy's lunch on the table because I didn't want to go in. We used to take his lunch at the tram, you know, where they work, and I didn't want to go. So when I ran in the house, I put the lunch on the table, and the bomb that fell on the corner knocked me under the table. Good thing the bomb was small back then, and not something like today. But the corner of the house fell. And then I hear my mother calling me, and I said, I'm okay, and I ran where they were all holding the door like you know, that was the safest thing to do. So then we ran, and they really bombed our town. We couldn't live there. We lived for about a month in a big room with 15 or 20 other people, family, until they found us a place to live, you know. We couldn't live in that. So there was bad too, because every time the siren would go off, we had to run and go underground, and we used to sleep with the suitcase ready to take with us. I remember one night it was pouring down rain, and we got to the first floor, and my daddy said, if we're gonna die, we're gonna die dry. So we stayed in, we didn't go nowhere. But it wasn't fun, no. Then I went to school downtown, because we lived, it's just like San Francisco. It's built, you know, the city is down, and all the houses is up the hill. And every time the siren would start blowing over there, I would always run home. I didn't want to go. They had this tunnel where people would go. But then my mother said, no more, you're not coming home, you're staying home. So I didn't go to school that year.
The Germans had done so many atrocities and so many bad things. I wanted to get over there and, you know, make them pay. By the time I got there, I tried to get in so many times, and they always caught me, you know, because of the age thing. And they wouldn't sign, and I would go down and try to join, and, you know, they'd look at me and say, kid, you know, how old are you? You know, and I said, 17. And then they asked me stupid questions like, when were you born? And by the time I sputtered out, it's always wrong, you know. But it's just one of those things, like some people, you know.
We were under the tunnel, and this lady had another lady staying at home and was making bread for her. And she asked me if I would go and get her, that she would give me a loaf of bread. And a loaf of bread to me meant a lot that time. My mother didn't know about this, so I did go, and I had to hide in the door, you know, with the door, what do you call? You come in the door and that outside is that little, anyway, I was hiding by the door, and I saw German soldiers lying dead and people taking their boots and belongings and things like that. And that to me was terrible. I mean, I still remember that. And then when I went back, I had to hear from my mother because she didn't know I was going, and then she got after that lady. Because she had 2 daughters, but she didn't send them, she sent me. And the worst thing was that I didn't get to eat the bread. My mother took it away from me, and we all shared. You know, I thought I was going to eat the whole loaf of bread.
I was sent to Fort Belvoir for my basic training and everything. And then, like I say, since I was the only one that joined for the engineers, I was the only one on the train going to Fort Belvoir. I was by myself, you know, nobody there. And the Army, being the Army, they gave me a ticket to get on the train and a phone number to call when I got to where, you know, I was going. And I called, and it took them 2 or 3 hours to come get me. I stayed in a little place called Accotink, Virginia. At that time, it was just a spot in the road. I don't know what it is now. Of course, that was in 1946, so it's different. But they finally came, picked me up, and took me to the barracks. And I went in this real long barracks, you know, where there's maybe 60 or 70 people in. There was one other man in there at the time because they were just starting a new class of basic training. And I got in there and I looked around, you know, and I thought to myself, what in the hell am I doing here, you know, all alone? And I got real homesick, so I went to the Red Cross Club, wasn't too far away, the service club. And I went down there and called my home. And my mother answered the phone. And I started crying. And I bet I cried for 10 minutes. I couldn't stop bawling, you know. I just kept telling Mama, I want to come home, you know. And I could hear her screaming at my father, you know. I told you, Bob, I told you not. But anyway, my father came on the phone, and he told me, he said, son, he said, you're just homesick. He said, I want you to do something. He said, go back to the barracks where you were and go to the guy that's in there. I said, if you saw a man, tell him your name is John, and ask him his name, ask him where he's from, tell him where you're from, and he said, you'll be okay. And I stayed in the Army for 20 years. I never got homesick again.
I was 16, he was 18 when I met him. It was over. The war was over. The English came first, the New Zealand, which they are the nicest people you can ever meet. They really are. I mean, we really had a good time. They had tent in our backyard because they didn't have a place, a caserne, you know, to go. So they were there, and they would fix oatmeal every morning for breakfast. That's what they would eat. And they would bring us all the oatmeal you want to eat, and I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, every morning. But they were nice people. And he just came in, he came, I think, in 47 or 46. He came to Italy.
We were engineers, so they sent us up there to set up tents for the infantry because they were going to bring infantry in. So I went there, we stayed there for a couple of months and built tents, 4-man tents. Once we got the tents built, then again they loaded us up on trucks and took off. And that's when I got to Opicina, which is Trieste. And that's when I first went into Opicina. It was still bombed out, you know, the buildings were still down. It hadn't been rebuilt at all. In fact, the house where she lived was still bombed up. But we went to the little barracks and we stayed there. And they had a tank company and an infantry company up above us, and one other place they had another battalion of thing. We were the only engineers around. And we started, you know, working, and we got the barracks cleaned up. We got all new windows in. We got, you know, everything fixed. And we opened a club, an enlisted man's club. We had a bar and a snack bar and a dance floor. And they picked me. Remember, at 17, I couldn't even buy a beer in the United States, and I was a bartender. I was a bartender, and that's why I was, you know, I was there.
I had a friend that was as old as my sister, 90 now, but was, you know, young then. And she was working where I met my husband, and they had an opening. I was 16. I didn't have any money, you know, my mother couldn't give me money, so I told her, I said, Mama, let me go to work, but they didn't want to go, you know, let me go. Because, I mean, they don't know what, you know, the American do, what they don't do, so. But this friend of my sister said, I'll be there with her, so I'll watch over, you know. So that's the first day that I went to work. I walked inside the room, and my husband told this friend of his, see that girl over there? I'm going to marry her. The first time he even saw me, I mean, he said it right away. And I didn't like him. He wasn't my type. No way. I said I didn't want to have nothing to do with him. First of all, he was dark hair. I like blonde and blue eyes. Then he was, I have to say, they know, everybody know, he was Protestant and I was Catholic. And I said, no way Mama's going to let me go with a Protestant.
We needed a waitress, and another friend of hers named Clara came to work there, and the two of them started being waitresses. Yolanda didn't speak English. I didn't speak Italian at the time. But, you know, and like she said, at first she didn't like me because I had black hair, you know, and dark eyes, and she liked blonde and with blue eyes. But she never went with anybody, and we could never date or anything like that. And I finally, 6 of us got together. A friend of mine's father was a car dealer here in the United States, Oldsmobile dealer. And they were making Oldsmobiles in Switzerland in 46 and 47. He ordered one for him that he could pick up in Switzerland. And so he did. And so 6 of us piled in this Oldsmobile, and we went on vacation. We went from Italy and, you know, through Switzerland, up through France and into Belgium. And we were gone for a whole month. And from about the 4th or 5th day that we were gone, I started to realize that there was somebody back at it that I wanted to get back in. And it just, in that 30 days that we were on that vacation, I realized just how much, you know, she really meant to me. She had meant to me anyway, but we hadn't dated or anything like that because she was too young. Her mother wouldn't let her. We would walk home together sometimes, you know.
But that was a long time after.
After
Before,
we met.
After the bar closes, they will
Yeah.
let us dance for, before it closed, they will let us dance for about 5 minutes. And that was the time that I didn't like him. And he made sure to stop because he was jealous. I couldn't even dance for 5 minutes. Remember? Okay. Then we started going together. I
Yeah.
had a lieutenant that wanted to take me out, but I couldn't because the lieutenant is not supposed to come in the
Club,
club with
because
the
it was enlisted men's
men.
club. Hmm.
So the guy that was in charge, he said, no, you can't go out. So I said, okay, I can go out with him. Then we started talking, and we got used to, I guess, at each other.
Hmm.
And he started, taking me home, like he said before. And of course, like he said, and my mother and father didn't know that he, was going after me. He would just leave me out downstairs, and it happened.
It happened.
And here we are.
Yeah, I know.
It took a few months, because I worked there for about 6 months.
Hmm. Something right around there.
And we were already started getting together. And then the sergeant that was in charge had a girlfriend, and girlfriend needed a job, so they let us two girls go so they can come in, And then he used to come home at our house, and that's how I started.
Anytime I wasn't around, I didn't see her. I really missed her.
It wasn't
And,
really because he wasn't American.
No, it never.
I knew he wasn't rich because he used to send his money, half of his money to his mother. So
Yeah.
we didn't have money. So I said, I know he doesn't have a plantation, like he was kidding me.
You kept asking me about
I
peanuts.
know. I kept telling everybody when I came to the States, I didn't see the peanut plantation.
During World War II, they got food from the Americans, I think. And one thing that they had was those cans of planters, Virginia peanuts, So everybody thought that Virginia was just full of
Everybody had a
peanuts
plantation.
because it said, right on there,
No.
Virginia peanuts. Oh God, who kissed who? I had to chase her. I mean,
I didn't want to kiss because a friend of mine told me, if you kiss, your tonsil's going to come out.
she went home and
And I
checked her
believe-
tonsils. She really did. The first time I kissed her, she went home and checked her tonsils.
What an idiot.
Yolanda was, I don't know.
Well, he was the first one, so
Oh
be
yeah,
happy about
I'm goodness, I'm happy about it. I say it's hard for people to believe actually what what we went. There was no sex and anything, not even the mention of it with her. I mean, she was a 16-year-old girl who had been protected so much in her life, that she didn't even know if you
Well,
said.
I wanted my tonsil.
Yeah, you wanted your Thompson. I mean, you say sex to her, it was like another world. So I never, and I respected her so much and really loved her so much that it didn't enter my mind, I'm not saying that I was, a virgin all the time I was in Italy before I met her.
They're
Yeah,
gonna love that.
they'll love that. Oh, God, I forgot the kids. I hear that.
I forgot the kids.
Oh, yeah. But
Okay,
anyway,
what's the next-
but anyway.